Hello everyone, welcome back, and today we're going to be working on the save and load system for Spellcaster. As well as that, we're also going to be adding in mana for spells. Now, as you can see, this isn't Spellcaster. This is a 3D game that I was working on before I created this channel, and this has a save and load system. So we're going to be pinching the save and load system from here and integrating it into Spellcaster's code. As you can see, I'm just showing you, and this has how long you've played for and when you last saved as well. I will create a better save system in the future, and you'll probably see that in a YouTube short sometime soon. After taking the code from that game and putting it into Spellcaster with all the correct parameters, the save and load system should now work. So it did need some more work, and as you can see, I'm testing it, and I pull up the pause menu and I click load, and it has loaded me up. This did take quite a bit of work because some of the parameters just weren't working. So this is just a little test, and I'm turning on some spells, and then you can see that I can use them, and the beam does work perfectly fine and it looks really good. I can jump up and down, and I did fix the tile map a bit because it was slightly broken. Now it's time to add in mana, so you can see that I go into the player stats script, which is where I keep all of the player's health and stamina, and we're just going to add in the current mana and the max mana, and in the control node that holds all of these statistics, we're going to add in the mana bar, and then we're going to add in the code that will allow it to sync with the amount of mana the player has. This is the code that will do that, and you can see that I'm doing mana.maxValue is the player stats max mana value, and then I'll do the same thing for the current mana, and it will just sync across both. Now, for the save system to work, I did actually have to change some of the parameters, and I had to change these bars so that it didn't load from the player stats script and loaded directly from the player. But the mana bar is now in, and it's time to implement using up your mana after adding in the function to save the amount of mana you have. So this is the code that will allow us to use the mana up, because all of these stats are now stored in the player script, and it just means that I can access them more readily instead of having to use an autoload script. However, that script does still exist for some networking between different scripts that all use those same statistics. You can also see the code that will load the mana back up, and this just sets the mana variables to the ones that are in the save file. This is the code that will allow us to use the mana, and here in the player spell script I'm adding in values for all of the different spells. These values are the amount of mana it will cost, and for the beam it does change because it was using so much mana every single frame that I changed it to 0.01, because then every single frame it will use a bit of mana, but it won't absolutely tear through your mana. So here I'm just doing a bit of testing, and I can see that it's not subtracting the mana values, and that is because I haven't set the mana in the player stats script, and it just needs to link up through the player. Now, after activating those spells, you can see that I can use up my mana. This is really good, and I make sure that if you have 0 mana, then you can't use that same spell or use any spells at all until you have more mana. However, I don't actually add in mana regeneration because I'm not sure how I want to do that right now. Whether I want it to be some collectibles that will allow you to boost your mana back up again, or if I just want some natural mana regeneration. Here you can see that I'm testing the beam, and it only subtracts mana when you shoot the beam, but not while it's active. And you can see here that I'm trying to fix that by using a beaming variable, and if it's on, then I will subtract mana. If it's not on, then I won't subtract mana. I do still use this variable, however I do change the values, otherwise it just uses way too much mana. As you can see here, I've added a delay, and after the delay it just uses up every last bit of mana, and it's not good. After fixing all of that though, we're finished for today. Now all the mana works, and so does saving and loading. You can see that I'll load my save and I'll go back, and I've lost some mana since when I saved I had some reduced mana. The beam also works because I had that in my save file, and everything else still works just fine. Saving and loading are perfect, and it doesn't work in the caves right now, but I will make sure that it does in the future. But thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.